Alright, so in this video we're going to learn what a perpendicular bisector is on a coordinate plane. So first off, a few things. What does perpendicular mean? So luckily we already know that. So perpendicular, we know it makes a 90-degree angle. And we also learned that the slopes are going to be opposite reciprocals. Okay, so remember opposite reciprocals would be if you had 3 over 2, that would be the same thing as 2 over 3, one positive, one negative, okay? So a bisector we know from Module 1 is when it's cut something in half. And when you cut something in half, that means you've got 2 equal parts, it's going to happen in the middle. You're going to have equal parts. Okay, so we put perpendicular and bisector together and see what a perpendicular bisector is. So a perpendicular bisector is going to be a line that is perpendicular to a line segment. And the reason it's a line segment is we have to have some kind of length to find the middle, and it's going to pass through the midpoint. So we're going to say passing through the midpoint. Okay, so again, a perpendicular bisector is some line that is going to go through the midpoint of another line, cutting it into 2 equal parts, and forming 90-degree angles, so we're going to deal with opposite reciprocal slopes. So I'm not going to lie, there are a lot of steps to make a perpendicular bisector, but they are pretty straightforward in the fact that they make sense. So for example, the first step, luckily you've got it on your paper, is to plot the 2 points and to draw the line that connects them. So they're going to give you 2 points, you're going to draw the line to have a line segment. The second thing is you need to find the slope of that line, okay? Because then you're going to have to find the perpendicular slope. So they're going to give you a slope, or you're going to have to find it, either using rise over run or the slope formula. And then you're going to have to make something perpendicular to that. So then once you have the perpendicular slope, you're going to need to find the midpoint of the line, because this new line that we're creating is going to pass through the midpoint. So once you have the midpoint and then you have a perpendicular slope, we know that we can use point slope form to then write the equation of our new line and graph that line. So again, if you forgot point slope form, it's y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. And again, if you forgot how to find the midpoint, that is when you add your x's and divide by 2, and then you add your y's and divide by 2. Okay? So again, you're going to need the point slope form, you're going to need the midpoint formula, and then you're going to need how to make something perpendicular, okay? So we're going to take a look at one example because they are kind of long. So here's what a problem would look like. Find the equation of the perpendicular bisector to the line segment with endpoints 5, 10, and 7, negative 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is graph the points. So 5, 10 would be right here. And then 7, negative 4 would be down here, okay? And then we're going to draw the best line that we can. Excuse my graph. It'll probably be not the straightest line. You can use your calculator if you need a straight edge. You can use a sheet of paper. You can use another pencil, whatever to get that straight edge as possible. So the second thing is to find the slope. So if you're a rise over run person, you can use it using the graph. So if we wanted to, I could, do a slope triangle and find the rise over run that way. Or what you could do is use your slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So again, either way is up to you. I'm going to use the formula because I don't really want to count those squares right now. But you would do negative 4 take away 10 over 7 minus 5. So negative 14 over 2, which is a negative 7 over 1, negative 7. So the slope of that line is a negative 7. Okay, so what I could do, can I delete that blue line? Okay. You can actually start from this and go down 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over 1, and I actually drew my line pretty nice. And you can continue to do that, go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over 1. Doing that is so we actually might see our midpoint before we actually do the formula, but we're going to move on. So then step number 2 or 3 is going to be to find a perpendicular slope to what we found. So I need to do a perpendicular slope. So I can always put that number over 1. So perpendicular would be 1 over 7, and it would end up being a positive number. So I'm going to end up using 1 over 7 in the future. All right, lastly is to find the midpoint. So I'm going to do that by hand. I'm going to add my x's, so 5 plus 7 over 2. And then I'm going to add my y's, 10 plus a negative 4 over 2. So if I were to do that, 5 plus 7 is going to be a 12 over 2, which is a 6. And then 10 minus 4 is a 6 over 2, which is a 3. So then this is going to be my midpoint. And let's see if it is that actual point that I found earlier. So if I start here, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So that is my midpoint. Okay. All right, lastly, I need to find the equation of the line going through your midpoint and going through that perpendicular slope. So we're going to get point slope form out. And let me extend my page. So I'm going to start off, let me rewrite it for you guys. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to start off with y minus 3 for my midpoint equals my slope, which is a 1 over 7, times x minus this x point, which is a 6. So now I'm going to distribute because the line and slope intercept form is the best. So I'd get 1 over 7x, and then 1 over 7 times negative 6 is just a negative 6 over 7 equals y minus 3. So lastly, add 3 to both sides, and you would get y equals 1 over 7x. Now you could type this in the calculator, again making sure that negative 6 over 7 is a fraction, and you end up getting a positive 15 over 7. Okay. Now that 9 is obviously not the best to graph because that y-intercept is pretty funky, okay? So what to do to actually get a line on the graph is to start at this midpoint and then do your perpendicular slope. So can I go up 1 and over 7? Not quite on this graph. So instead of going up 1 and over 7, I'm going to go down 1 and left 7. And I'll get a point here. Again, go down 1, left 7. Okay, so if I were to connect that line, that does look like a line that cuts this other line segment in half, and it does look like a 90-degree angle happened right here, okay? So again, if it wants you to find the equation of a perpendicular bisector, lots of steps. Number 1 is to graph your points. The second is to find the slope of that actual line, and then find a perpendicular one so that it will cross at a 90-degree angle. Next is to find the midpoint. Again, you can do it by looking at the graph and finding the middle of the slope, or you can do it by hand using the midpoint formula. And then again, use your point, use your slope, do point slope to get the equation of the line if they want you to graph it. And it's a nice equation, go for it. If it's a funky y-intercept and it's really hard to graph, you're more than welcome to start at that midpoint and then do that perpendicular slope, okay? So again, I understand this is hard, but I can help you through it. We can get it. Thank you for watching.